Hey, this is Adam Green, the director of Hatchet, and you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com.
Welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I am Nasty Neil, and I'm joined by Jody Wheeler, the director of The Dark Place.
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you very much. Happy holidays. We're filming this on the day before Cthulhu Mass, so that's going to be kind of fun.
Yeah, and happy holidays as well to yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So that's the end of the interview. No.
Okay, great. Yes. Eggnog. Yay. Okay.
So The Dark Place, for people not familiar, let them know what it's about.
It is a mystery thriller about a young man who is estranged from his family, returns home, and discovers that his mother has remarried. He's got nefarious in-laws, and there's a plot afoot that's going to frame him and have his fortune stolen from him, and he's got to figure out a way to save the day before he basically winds up framed for murder.
Mm-hmm. So what inspired the story?
In some ways, family. I mean, it's a mystery thriller film, so it's exciting and all of that. But the emotional core to it is our families, how we're kind of stuck with our families, and they're kind of stuck with us, and what that does, and how you process that, and how you deal with that in your life, and what happens when you've kind of seen yourself as not being the best person that you can be, and out of the blue, you're called upon to be the hero that everybody else thought you could be, but you didn't think you could be yourself, and how you rise to the occasion, and how you make how you save the day. And that's kind of at the core of this mystery thriller thing.
Mm-hmm. So, would you say any of the characters are based on you at all? Or maybe all the characters have like different aspects of you?
Yeah, you're actually the first person to say the second part. I've always gotten asked, which character is based on you, and really when you're writing these things, all of the characters are pieces of me in the story. Everything from the hero to the villain to the mom to the best friend to the boyfriend to all of that. Those are all little elements and pieces of me. In the story, the hero has something called hyperthymesia, which is a real condition, which basically allows a person to record every moment of their life, almost like a video camera, and have basically instant recall of anything that's happened to them in their life. And we kind of play with it a little bit. It doesn't work quite like that in real life, but we turn that into a wonderful visual power that he kind of has. If this was a superhero movie, it would be a superhero power. But we kind of play with that as as both a curse and a blessing. And I don't have that, but I do find it fascinating to think about all of the pain and the exciting parts of our life and have that instantly available. And that's great for all the fun stuff that happens in your life. But if your pain, if that time that you said something, horrible to somebody that you really love, and you can never escape from that, how does that impact you, and what happens? And when you have to then go out and deal with that person for the rest of your life, how are you able to make your life work, and how are you able to deal with these things, with these really deep and powerful emotions? It was a fun thing to kind of contemplate and to roll it into this story and then put it in a mystery thriller framework.
Mm-hmm. Where did you come?
Goodness, I got so passionate talking about that. So
yeah. Well, I was going to ask, since you were very passionate about that. Where did you first discover that?
Well, my first career, I was a therapist and social worker. Mm-hmm. My first degree is in psychology and education, and so I spent a number of years, doing mental health work and doing stuff in the in various fields, working for community organizations and child protective services and that kind of stuff. And so that was a first fascination of mine. And then I'm a big sci-fi and fantasy and horror fan, and mystery and thrillers are kind of in that same area. And so, as I'm doing all of this stuff out in the real world, I'm writing stuff on the side. But I started to see these things together, and when it came time to this. I moved to Hollywood a number of years ago, and this was the first story that I actually went around from studio to studio pitching, and it got good remarks and pitching, where you walk in, you tell them the story basically, and they say if they like it or not. And I got good feedback from it, and so the story stuck with me. And as the years went by, I wrote it and rewrote it, and brought all these different elements of my life, my training, my profession at that time to it. Went on and became a professional screenwriter, and put all that stuff together. And this kind of grew out from all of that. So back to your earlier question, yeah, it's also a reflection of the experiences that I've had over the last 20, 30 years.
Mm-hmm. So you said this was the first movie that you really pitched. So how long did it take?
Yeah.
How long did it take from when you wrote it or you had the idea for it to become a film?
Oh goodness, I think we're talking 15 years from the time that I first 10, 15 years from the time that I first walked in somewhere and pitched the story. And to now, or to a year ago, when we actually finally released the film, and the script won some awards, and it was one of those things though that I never was able to get it off the ground, and then I partnered up with Steve Parker, who's the executive producer on the film, and we now have a movie company together. But he read the script and really loved it, and he was able to put together the financing on the movie, and so he said, let's make this, and so we went together and we made this film. So it was a long time process to get it going, and that seems to be par for the course for a lot of people to get your first movie made, the first movie that you are creatively in control of.
Mm-hmm. How much did it change from over those 15 years, from when you first conceived it till you actually made it?
I think the Hyperthymesia thing was a later addition. That was a couple of years into the process. It was just kind of a pseudo Sherlock Holmesian thing. And then when I read about this brand new thing that they had discovered, the Hyperthymesia, it suddenly clicked things together in a way that the story didn't have before. It really helped the emotional center of the tale. The other thing that happened, of course, is this is an independent film, so where it's made for a lower budget number. So you have to kind of revise and refine the scenes that you want to do and how you want to play it out, because you don't have the same kind of money and the same kind of access that the larger budgeted productions do. We actually did really well, and we found some really creative ways to tell the stuff, to tell the action scenes and the emotional scenes and the visual effects scenes. We found great ways of doing that, and so it's very nice and entertaining to people. But that was a way of how you have to shape your vision as you go along. And then when you find the locations, how you have to kind of tweak the story a little bit to write to the locations and make sure that it all fits together.
Mm-hmm. So
it's challenging.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, since you've worked on so long, and it seems like all the story and all the characters are personal to you. How is it to cast a film? I would assume you'd have specific people in mind, for the roles.
Well, it was actually a pretty wild ride on the casting front of this. We had a lead for the movie. He had a bit of a name in Hollywood, and we were all set to make the announcement for it. And then his schedule shifted around, and so we couldn't use him any longer. And that kind of really threw things into a lurch, because we had planned everything out for shooting. And so we then had to go back and start doing open casting and things. And the lead that we have for the film, Blaze Lippman, he just came in. He read the script, got the sides, came in, loved it, and he nailed it in the audition room. And I fell in love with him as the lead for the film, and we brought him on, and now he is who I've always seen in the role, even before I met him. So that was pretty amazing. And then there's another character, Will, in the movie, who I worked with an actor by the name of Timo DeCamp on a film that I produced called Judas Kiss, and that was done a couple of years ago, and he was an actor in that, and he blew me away in his performance. And so I rewrote a character in the film to better be something that he could play. And that was something else in there. Now these two guys who are, friends and boyfriends and in the story, they're who I've always seen, and their relationship and how they play off of each other is great. And then, of course, we just did the rest of the casting and the rest of the people, and Eddie Rioseca, who plays Ernie in this story, is another phenomenal actor who I just discovered. He had a career, but he was new from the stage now to acting. He came in, and his talent just kind of blew me away. So I was very fortunate. Allison Lane, who plays the sheriff, I met her on the festival circuit. And she suddenly took on who I saw now as the sheriff in this story. It was just really cool how all these people came together and all the voices that I had in my head suddenly had real world counterparts, and I got to see them all play out on the screen.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to mention, because you mentioned their boyfriends, and it really shouldn't matter to anybody, but how does that affect when you are pitching the story? That the protagonist is a gay character.
That was pretty interesting. Some people loved that. Some people didn't like that. Some people said, when I was pitching around, can we make the one character, can we make the other one a girl? How can we make this? And that's probably why it took a long time to get this thing made. The really interesting thing that we do in the story is the fact that the two leads are a couple. It's just de facto in the story. It's not talked about. It's not commented on. It's not a major plot point, anything like that. It just is. It's a mystery thriller story where the lead happens to be gay, but it's not a gay mystery thriller story. If you can, not to play the language, but that's just kind of how it is. And I found that people really kind of respond to that, gay and straight both, really kind of respond to that. It was a great compliment when I had some straight guys say, I really identified with the characters and all, and I didn't even think about the fact that they were gay. It just made sense to me of that these were who these guys were. Mm-hmm. And it's a new way into the story. That's kind of another thing that attracted me to writing this story. It's a new way in. It's something that you don't see every day. And so it was an important piece, and it was also important for me to make that piece not a big deal.
Yeah, I think that makes things more powerful, and also think it helps them from ever being dated, because they could be 20 years from now, people would look at that and say, like, well, why are they making a big deal about it? And kind of like, I know it's different, but the original Night of the Living Dead, I think they don't really play up that the main guy is a black guy. He just is,
right?
And it makes it's powerful at the time probably, and now you can watch it and it maybe not matter, but if they played it up, I think it would make the film a little dated.
And how that ends with the lead and the horrible thing that happens to him at the very end. Mm-hmm. It's, on one hand, it's a horrible thing that happens to that guy, but knowing at the time that movie was shot, it has a much deeper resonance. But it's still just a horrible thing, even if you're watching the movie now, where we more or less have a more equal society, though not exactly. Mm-hmm. That's really fascinating, and I'm curious to see what people will think 20, 30, 40 years from now if they catch this film on whatever the YouTube or the Netflix is of the future. So.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of that, Netflix and Redbox and video on demand, and how does that impact an independent director, independent producer?
It's never been easier to get your film out there. It's a lot harder now to get a sizable enough revenue return on a movie that you made. It takes a lot longer to make money or to pay back the movie than before. So, and even though your costs can be lower with the digital technology and everything, so it's a mixed bag of stuff. Our film, The Dark Place, plays on iTunes, and it plays on Vimeo, and it plays on Amazon. You can get it on all those services. There's a couple of other new ones that it will be appearing on. We have a website, thedarkplacemovie.com. It lists everything and all the updated places. So that's been really kind of fun, and I can tell people where to go to see it. It's just it's a lot harder if you're not a big studio movie to access all of these things and to keep your movie moving ahead and bring the revenue in and all. It's the interesting thing about being a writer producer today, an independent writer producer today, is you have to be aware of all the creative stuff, and you also have to have some idea of the business stuff and how you're going to make your art really good, and then make the commerce attractive enough that other people will be interested in backing your visions. And that's been a great education, too.
Mm-hmm. Now, how long have you, because I have a reason for asking this, but how long have you been working in films?
Let's see. It was always kind of a side hobby of mine. So I got my first degree in 1993. I got my master's in counseling. And while I was doing that stuff, I was writing for some local television in Washington, D.C. And that's kind of where I got the bug, as it were. And then I moved out to Los Angeles in 1996, worked for social services there, but was writing screenplays on the side. And then it was, I think in 2006 that I actually went back to UCLA and got a degree in screenwriting at UCLA. And then sold another film that got made and stuff. So it's been this huge lifelong kind of journey, but really 10 years or so working as a screenwriter and producer and really in Hollywood. But it's always been this thing that's been a part of my life. It's been if I was working a day job, it was the secret lover that I had at night and you came home to, and it was a lover that demanded I divorce my day job and make that the primary relationship. And finally it won. So, let's frame everything in terms of sex. It's easier to understand.
Well, the reason I asked, because actually I like to ask a question about Netflix and streaming, and I've always found that people who've worked in movies for a long time are generally not happy with that direction, where people from the last few years are really happy with it. And I think you were the first person to say it was a mixed bag. And so I found that interesting that you were kind of in between, because like I remember I had talking to Tony Todd from Candyman, and he really is not a fan of that, because he said he makes so much less money off movies that he's in or he makes, as opposed to back when you could have them on VHS and you would make a lot from them. So it's interesting to see the different opinions on.
Yeah, the danger and the reality is that everything is shifting, and then there's two pools. There's the big, huge studio Star Wars Force Awakens level movies where those people would get decent money, and then there's everybody else where you don't know if you're going to make peanuts or if you're going to make dollars on what you're doing. And I can see for an actor like Tony Todd, who's been at this for a long time, it does make things very difficult. And I think that's also why I, as a writer, I couldn't just be a writer. I had to become a producer and then had to become a director in order to have enough access to have enough irons in the fire to make this stuff work out. That just seems to be what you have to do.
Mm-hmm. Between those things, which is your favorite aspect of creating? Director, writer, producer?
Writing is of course the first love, because that's where you're really trying to make this idea turn into something real and turn into something tangible that other people can follow, and then producing and directing after that, where you are then called upon to take this blueprint or take this ephemeral thing, and turn it into something far more tangible, and bring the right people in to do this, and to find the right experts to come along and help you with the vision and make this all play out, and make it all play out on the screen, and make it all something that in 80, 90, 100 minutes makes people want to watch it and have a good feeling about what they've watched at the end of the day. So it's this whole complicated puzzle, and that's intellectually fascinating, and it's intellectually challenging, it's emotionally challenging, and to make all of this work, it's kind of the ultimate Rubik's Cube.
Mm-hmm. So
did I just date myself? Rubik's Cube? Do the kids know what Rubik's
no,
Cubes are?
I think they've actually made a comeback.
Okay, good. All right.
Because I noticed, I think there was some. It was funny that you brought that up, because there was some movie I watched not too long ago, and I actually had the same thought. I was like, why is that kid playing with the Rubik's Cube? And then I was told that they've actually made a comeback.
Oh, okay, good. I don't feel quite as dated now.
Yeah, I don't think because when I was a kid, they had the Rubik's cube. Then this had like the Rubik's. They had like pyramids and all that stuff.
Oh yeah,
I don't think
yes,
they do
yes.
all those anymore. But yeah, I think the cube still.
Well, they make the Rubik's what is it, Laurent configuration? What's the box from Hellblazer? Can they make a Rubik's version of that, and you open it up and you get your very own pinhead?
They definitely should do that.
Okay, well, that's what I would want, but once. I'd only want it once. I'm not sure I'd want it after you open it up. You know, what's left after you open it up and you go to hell? So, but there you go.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's you have to want them to come, so you're asking for it.
Yes. Exactly.
Along those lines, Hellraiser. What are some of your favorite horror movies?
Oh, well, yeah, Hellraiser's fun. What are some of the other ones? Poltergeist. Oh, I remember Poltergeist, the original one, scared the bejesus out of me. Let's see. Because I'm also a sci-fi fan, I like it when you can put the sci-fi and the horror together. Mm-hmm. Even some things like Aliens or Event Horizon. The first 2/3 of that is just this wonderfully creepy kind of movie. So those are the kinds of things that I like. And then if you kind of slip a little bit into the just creepy, I think recently I saw Stoker, which is kind of a drama serial killer thing, all kind of mixed up together, and it's beautifully done and shot, and deep characters, and then just some twisted stuff that happens in it. And I found that to be pretty fascinating too. So it's a lot of things that kind of influence me and that I like to watch again and again on Netflix or on iTunes.
Yeah, my co-host on the show, Annabelle Lecter, who couldn't be here tonight, but Event Horizon, that's actually one of her favorites. It's like in her top 10.
Yes. I saw that in the movie theater when it came out, and really, really enjoyed it. I like how the fact that as the years have gone by, it's gotten it's kind of come up in people's evaluations, because I do think that the first half to 2/3 of that are just really fantastic. The last third I don't think is as great as the setup is, but it's still a really fun kind of twisted ride.
Mm-hmm. So you said you've been working movies about 10 years, whatever. How did you always want to do that though? Like since you were a kid?
Yes, I did. I was talking last night with the family, and we were talking about the first TV shows. The first movie that I went to that kind of really blew me out of the water, of course, is Star Wars. I mean, I was 8 years old when the first Star Wars happened, and that was unlike anything that had been done ever. And now it's pretty commonplace, but that movie kind of made a mark on me. And something like Doctor Who. I mean, I started watching when I was little, and then of course on my own. Then you'd write your own. Today it would be called fan fiction, but at that time you were just pretending, and you were writing. And I was writing and doing stuff on my own, and so I always wanted to do it. There was this thing about how could you do it? How could you be in Hollywood? Because it was a lot. It was a lot different. Nowadays, young people that I talk to, they know that there's a path that they can take to become a writer, director, producer. You get your own camera, you can shoot stuff on YouTube or whatever, and you can be a celebrity on your own, or you can make your own short films or your own feature films. Years ago, that was not the case in the 80s. It was a lot harder to figure out how you were going to do it. Mm-hmm. I remember I took how to write a Miami Vice script. It was a class offered at the YMCA. And I was 13 or 14 years old, the youngest kid sitting in there, and they were telling you how to write a script for Hollywood, and they actually told us how to write it the wrong way. It wasn't the way that Hollywood actually was writing scripts even then, but that's what we learned, or that's what they were teaching. So that hunger was there, and I kept writing, and I kept at it on the side, and would find a book or two and read, and so it seems like I've spent a lot of my life. Just learning how this is done and finding my way into Hollywood and finding my way into my little place in Hollywood and making stuff real. We have, now I have a production company, and we have a horror film coming up this in 2016 called WTF that I produced and directed by Peter Hero, and that's a kind of a fun slasher horror film that we're doing. And then, but also at our company, we now are we've got a project in development as a TV series. We have another feature film that's in development. And so that's kind of the fun thing, that now I'm actually here, and I'm not, some big muckety muck in Hollywood. I have, modest person, modest talent, but it's pretty fun to be where I'm at and to kind of see, can I go further? What's going to happen? That's all really fascinating, and it's pretty remarkable that I've gotten here and had a lot of help and a lot of people that had some faith and took some chances. So does that answer it? I mean, this is a windy road. It seems like anytime that there's somebody finds their way in to this big Hollywood-esque machine, that path evaporates, and so the next person's got to figure it all out for themselves. And that's the interesting part of this.
Now I'm actually the IMDb up here, and I'm looking at the poster for WTF, and it definitely looks that's very eye catching, and I'm interested.
Yeah, well, we will get. I will be sure that we get Peter on your show, because I think it's. I know your show skews more horror-y, and I think this film is really up there and really right along your target audience, even more in the dark places.
Yeah, but I'm a fan of all movies in general. If it's good, I like it. But the show itself, we usually are horror, but we talk about everything. And by the way, he said horror-y, not hoary. So.
Yes, I'm talking fast, so it sounds like I said a terrible word. But,
yeah. Well, there are times I'll tell people I'm going to a horror convention, and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Horror." I don't know.
And then you start talking about heads falling off, and people are looking at what exactly kind of convention are you going to, and what are you doing to these poor women? Yes,
exactly. Now I have to ask, what is BentCon?
Oh, that is a LGBT focused sci-fi, fantasy, and horror convention. It was for fans of that, of gay fans who like that. But also there was a lot of creative people that are making comics and movies and books geared to that audience. And so a couple of years ago, we got together and made the first convention, and we didn't have one this year. We did 5 in a row. We took a break this year, and next year it should be coming back. But that's been pretty cool. And now when we did it, nobody else was doing something like this. Now there's New York had a similar themed convention, and I believe there's been one in Florida. And so it's a way for fans who feel kind of on the outs of, not on the outs, but don't exactly feel it at a place at even Comic-Con or whatnot, get to go and get to talk about, their love and how they see comic books and movies and horror. So it's really interesting. Just kind of how you spin it. It's everybody kind of, gay men, there's a popular conception that gay guys and lesbians don't really like science fiction or fantasy or horror or whatever. It's all about whatever the stereotype is. And there's a whole lot of people that like this, and it cuts across every genre, every permutation of what it means to be human. And this was just one way that we felt that we could get people together and come and talk about their love for these genre topics from a different angle that's usually like a program at Comic-Con. There's usually one track where somebody gets together and talk about, different ways of perceiving the heroes and stuff. Here we got to talk about every possible thing that we wanted to from that angle. So we did that for 5 years. This year we took a break, and I think we're going to come back next year.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, and I was just interested in that because I don't know if there is. You answered that about if there is an audience in the gay community for horror films.
There is. There's a huge audience for it, and and people in the gay community have come out of the closet talking about their love for horror films, and even people who aren't gay, a lot of people have a hard time admitting that they love horror films or whatnot, and so when you're actually able to talk about it and find a friend and find somebody that really loves this stuff, then that's great, and it helps to break down stereotypes even about what it means to be gay.
Yeah. Well, along those lines, I host a lot of panels at conventions, and I hosted a Scream Queens panel, and a good friend of mine, Mark Patton, would always be on the Scream Queens panel, which we always had a lot of fun with, because he's really, I don't know if you're familiar with Mark Patton from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, but
oh yes.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and he's got a new documentary coming out about. He was kind of like shunned after the movie came out because a lot of fans, because there's a lot of like homosexual undertones of the movie, and
yes,
and
very much so on that one.
Yeah, and now he has fun with it, but at the time, it was hurtful to him, and he left Hollywood, and. So anyway, it's a really good, it's interesting story. It's sad at the same time, but he has fun with it now. He's really accepted it.
And that kind of speaks to the fact that these themes have always been there and always been a part of the genre. But to hit it too much on the head, like you found out, you can get some kind of backlash. That's not so much the case today, but it is really fascinating. I think about there's a whole bunch of people now that are shipping the two male leads from the Star Wars, saying that they had the most emotionally Finn and Poe have the most emotionally deep relationship in the new Star Wars film, and so people have been talking about the two of them being the couple for the 21st century. So society has changed. Society has changed from where Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 is to today.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm from Massachusetts, very liberal here, so it's a lot of stuff that doesn't really register with me. I don't know why anyone cares, but different people throughout the whole country. But
yeah, you guys had gay marriage before California did, so
yeah.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. So you said it's a smaller budget film, and so some of the stuff you had to change from your original script. So what was some of the hardest things about making the movie?
There's a car crash in the film, and it's a really important car crash in the film. And so you can write car crashes, tumbles over, all that stuff. How do you film that when you don't have the money to actually do all of that? And so we figured out how to make it happen. We also were able to get the before car and the after car. I actually did that. It was the craziest thing in the world to show up on set a day or two before we filmed this scene and to drive up to the location. And there's this wrecked car that we've set off to the side of the road where we're going to shoot the scene. And I'm like, this is amazing. Somebody just brought a wrecked car and put it right there. And between that and the other and the live car and special effects and all, we were able to film this and make it feel like you were inside of a car as it flipped over, and to show you the aftermath and all. So that was really fascinating to get that done. And then for the hero in the story, the hyperthymesia that I talked about, it's these live memories that he can see and feel and are very real to him, and how to make that happen without just doing a cut to the memory, to kind of bring it into the real world. And that was fun to figure out. How do you make this memory happen? You don't have the money to do a full 3D tracking and stuff, but can you find other ways to bring this into the real world, to the world of your movie frame? And we found some really creative ways of doing that. And I think that it helped to show what was going on inside of this the hero. So those are some of the challenges that you face, and it's a great exercise, because you sit around with some smart people and you're trying to figure out, okay, we can't do it like that, but if we do it like this, and if we do it like this, and if we change this, now we've got something.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that sometimes helps you be more creative if you have to find different ways to work around something?
Yes, it does. You've got to think on your feet and really make things work. And sometimes you get it wrong. I mean, the ambition for any independent filmmaker is to do something really huge, and you make a stab at it, and you try to get it to happen, and you don't always succeed. But in the attempts, sometimes you come up with something that works pretty well, and that's fun, and it makes you better when you go back to write the next movie, and it makes it better when you sit down to direct the next movie, because you can build upon what you did the last time to make the next thing even better than you thought.
Mm-hmm. So, what's the reaction been like for The Dark Place? Have you screened it at festivals?
We've screened at some festivals online, and people like it. It's a good fun B movie. That people are kind of surprised that the way it looks as good as it does, that the characters are interesting, that it's kind of a different take on a familiar subject. So we get, always there are people that don't like stuff, but by and large, most people have kind of enjoyed it. And I've gotten some really great feedback on it.
Nice. So where can people find it right now?
They can go to thedarkplacemovie.com and see a list of all the locations or all the services that have the movie available. Off the top of my head, I know that iTunes has it. I think pretty much worldwide. Amazon has it available right now, and Vimeo has it right now. So those three I know I know is available for rent and for download.
Nice. And I was just say where can people find you, but that sounds like very ominous. But where can people follow you online?
They can see me on Facebook. The One True Jody is the Facebook / They can find me there. And I think I have a Twitter too. That's The One True Jody. I think they're all tied together. So they can find me The One True Jody on Twitter. So that's there as well. And I think that and the Dark Place movie also has links to all the other social networking stuff. So there's a tortured path, and you can find your way to me, whether it's to compliment me or bring me an axe, whatever you'd like.
To attack you, exactly. We actually have an axe murderer hoodie, so it all comes together. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it works.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. It's been a great talking to you.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it, and thank you for having me. And I will send WTF your way once we're finished with that.
I'd love to see that, and I'm looking forward to us seeing The Dark Place as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hey, this is Dan Creed from Bastard.
Co-director Patrick Robert Young.
And co-director Paul Robinson.
And you're listening to Without Your Head.